Hello everyone! Today's presentation is about the movie Mudbound that was realized in 2017 by the Afro-American woman director Reedy. You'll see through the presentation why it's important to mention that she's an Afro-American. But first I'm going to introduce you the cast of the movie, even their character that are played in the movie, and I will make a little summary of their characters. We're going to see the poster of the movie. We're going to talk about the director who inspired her the movie and what the movie is about. You'll see through the presentation that we are going to analyze the movie. So we are going to have a bit of a theory, and then we are going to introduce you to the history of racism in the United States. And you will see a difference in the South and in the North, and even a difference in Europe about the racism and where the segregation is present or not. And we're going to finish with a little resume of racism in today's society, with movies and even in history of the United States. In this part, I'm going to introduce you the cast member of the movie. But first, you need to know where the movie takes place. We are in the 40s, during and after the World War II. There's two families involved in the movie. You have the McCallan, who are white and owner of the land, and you have the Jackson that rents a part of the land, and they are a colored family. You have Laura, who is played by Carey Mulligan. You have Henry McCallan, who is played by Jason Clarke. You have Jamie McCallan, who is played by Garrett Hedlund, and you have Pappy McCallan, who is played by Jonathan Banks. The Jackson's family, you have Hep, who is played by Rob Morgan. You have Runsell, who is played by Jason Mitchell. And you have Florence, who is played by Mary J. Blige. So we take the movie place with Laura, who is a 31 years old woman, who calls her an old bride because she is old to get married. And she sees her husband as a savior because she was put on her to be a wife and a mother at home. And she's not really in love with him, but she's fine with it. You have Henry, who is a serious man. He's an engineer, and he's owning the land in Greenville, Alabama. Jamie it's Henry's younger brother. They have a difference of age. He's totally the opposite of Henry. So he's an actor. He's a seducer. He's really outgoing. He's going to fight at the war as a pilot, and when he comes back, he has a trauma of the war. You have Pappy McCallan, who is a really grumpy person, big rigidity, very racist, and very violent. He wants his son to be proud of being rude with other people, and even killing people for him is a pride. The Jackson family now, we have Hep, the father, who is renting a part of the land, and he's a farmer. He wants the job to get done. He knows how to do the job. It's really important for him to do as his parents and his parents before grandparents did on the land. So the deed is really important for him. You have Runsell, the older son of the Jacksons, who go and fight in the World War as a surgeon in the armored vehicle. When Runsell went to Europe, he could have a normal life. He have the opportunity to living his life as a colored person. So he has a girlfriend who is German and she is white. And at the end of the war, he has to come back in Greenville, Alabama, and realize that he was really how I say it. He realized that he was very privileged to have that kind of life in Europe, but when he came back, life's still the same. Nothing had changed about the racism. And you have Florence, his mother, who is a midwife and a good loving mother who takes care of her family and will take care even of Laura's and Henry's family in the movie. Let's take a short look of the poster. In the poster, we can see that everybody is dressing in the 40s. So the man has a shirt with the brasses and the hat. The woman is dressed with a dress, but you can see that the colors are not very lightning. So we can see all the natural look. We can see a lot of brown in the picture. We can see faces that are very serious. Even if Jamie, Runsell, and Poppy are looking in front, the other are looking aside. You can see the seriousness in this picture. So you can feel that life is hard and they are unhappy.
Okay, so moving on, we really wanted to give you guys a brief summary of what is going on in in our movie Mudbound. So Mudbound follows the lives of one black family and one white family as they become intertwined during and after World War II in Mississippi. The Jacksons, led by the husband and wife duo of Abe and Florence, tend to their farm and try to coexist peacefully within a town where racism is never more than a couple hundred feet away. Their path is altered when Henry and his gentle wife Laura move onto the same farmland and try to set up a life for themselves. They are joined by the unpleasant, unspoken, and incredibly prejudiced and racist Pappy, the father of Henry and Jamie. Both families struggle to adjust to one another and make their way out of poverty, while waiting for Jamie and Runsell to return home from war. When they do finally return, Runsell has acquired an enlightened view of the world. The two young men strike up a bond and create a deep friendship, one which is finally not defined by the color of their skin. There is an external and internal struggle within each of these six main characters. The pain they all must grapple with daily, from war to poverty to racism, is written in the misery that covers their faces throughout the entire movie. And the mud that often cover their clothing is also a good example of that. Their thoughts are vocalized through overlapping narrations, which are mixed and matched from each character at different points. Florence conveys the harsh realities of being a black woman during that time, while Laura also shows what it's like to live under a repressive patriarchal rooftop. And Runsell, who is turned away and scorned by every white person aside from Jamie, tells viewer what it feels like to constantly have insurmountable odds as a black man in an unfair white world. So in the movie, racism is very, very well portrayed and very well defined by Dee Reese, the director. And so yeah, that's the brief summary I can give you guys of the movie. Alright guys, so for my part, I really want to get into a very important, a very focal point of our movie, and it's the fact that Diandra Reese is actually the director of our movie. She's a 44 years old African-American lady. She is an American screenwriter as well as director. She's best known for her features in the film Pariah, Bessie, as well as her best success, her immense success, the film we are covering today, Mudbound. So Mudbound is a movie about racism and race relations that continue to be played out even to this day. The movie explores whiteness and the privilege associated with it. So while comparing and contrasting the experiences of white and black folk of the time period, the movie contains many personal connections for Reese, such as her grandfather's experiences in the army, her grandmother who aspired to be a stenographer, an ambition shared with one of the characters in the film. So Dee Reese even used her grandmother's journal to help guide her process. It contained family photographs of their slave ancestor, with the names of who fought in wars. She even used the text from the journal, a war ratio book, and a photograph of her great grandmother, and each one was an inspiration for something in Mudbound. So Reese says that using those personal connections in the movie was a way for her to put her own personal history in her movie. So for her movie Mudbound, Reese was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay for her movie, which made Reese the first black woman ever to be nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, as well as the first black woman to be nominated for writing Oscar since 1972. She also has a nomination called the Mary G. Bridge Academy Award for the Best Supporting Actress for a movie Mudbound, which made Reese the first black woman to direct a film for which an actor or actress was nominated for an Academy Award. So basically, it it goes without saying that Deandra Reese was the perfect fit to direct such a movie, just due to her personal experiences, due to basically her knowledge of the African American culture. Her ancestors also really helped her make this movie possible, and basically, I think she was just the perfect fit for such an incredible movie. And her perspective on the matter were really well interpreted in the movie, and we really were lucky to actually see such a good movie from such an amazing direct and talented director. So yeah, that's about it for Dandra Reese, the director of our movie. All right, so moving on, we really wanted to get into another very important aspect of the movie, which was racism. So, of course, racism in the movie Mudbound is tackled and exposed in so many different shape, ways, and form. The movie is a great example of how, in only about 2 hours, a very talented director can touch a very delicate subject such as racism so perfectly. And it made an impact in the life of those who see it, because personally, before I saw the movie, I didn't know segregation and racism towards black or African American people was still a thing during World War II. But obviously, seeing the movie and now realizing how like segregation was still a big aspect of World War II really opened my eyes. And despite the gains of the abolitions of slavery and the three Reconstruction amendments to the Constitution, Jim Crow segregation had pervaded every aspect of American society since since 1890s, and the military was no exceptions. When black men volunteered for duty or were drafted following the Japanese sneak attack, they were relegated to segregated divisions and comeback supported roles, such as cook, quartermaster, and grave digging duty. The military was as segregated as the Deep South, basically, and we were able to see that in the movie, which really opened my eyes because I really didn't know that. Also, because the gap between the promise and performance of American freedom when it came to race relations, many black people frankly felt alienated from the war effort. The movie did a really good job at exposing and showing the racism during World War II. Also, the movie tackles another very important aspect of racism, which is the racism in cinema. The movie obviously is a great example of how far we've come in this aspect of racism, because many of the lead roles in the movies are obviously black folks, as well as the Darren D. Reese being the director of the movie. It really goes to show that we really came a long way having such a diversity in this movie, and it was really impressive to see.
As we told you before, the movie Mudbound is based on Hilary Jordan's novel. This is an historical fiction movie, so it is not a true story, but it could be. The way that we look at the movie is influenced by our social and cultural life. It's called the semiotic. So here, the semiotic is that we are North American, we live in Canada, we are in the 2020s, so we don't have the same vision as if we were South American, and our grandparents and our grandparents has already told us that kind of story. So the way that we look at the movie, we look at we are with our eyes that we haven't seen that kind of history only in the movie or maybe in the books. Maxime and I, we chose Mudbound because we both like historical action movie that was based on true stories. There is something particular in the movie Mudbound. First, we can get the alignment with Runsell, so we see the movie mostly in his eyes, but we had the possibility to change that kind of vision because each character could speak out their minds. and sometimes it was easy to be and take the place and have compassion for Laura. Same thing for Florence. Same thing with Hip, and same thing with Jamie and Runsell. We don't hear that much compassion with the character of Henry, because he's a very serious person, not emotional, but the others are more emotional than Henry and his father. But we hear all those characters speaking out, so it's easy to get the alignment to them at that time. We have a recognition here. We have the bad guy, the hero, and who has to be saved. So the bad guy is Pappy and the Ku Klux Klan that we see in the movie. The hero is Jamie, because he's the one who's making us hope in the relation and friendship and relationship that can be between colored people and uncolored people. And he was advanced in his at his time, because in the 40s they were not even in the South. It wasn't nicely see two person, a colored and a white person, being friends. And who has to be saved in the movie? It's Runsell, but not only Runsell. We have all the colored people that needs to be saved, because they are living on equality and injustice for having the same life. Inside, they are the same as we are. It's just the color of the skin. And we feel that injustice all along the movie. So it's a movie that everybody should see, because sometimes we think it's the old United States before the war, that there was a lot of racism, but you can see that in the 1940, during and after the war, there was still a lot of violence and racism, and the equality that was living in those years are still believed now by the colored people.
Okay, guys, so moving on, we really wanted to talk about a very important aspect of the movie, and it's basically the place the Ku Klux Klan has inside the movie, as well as the impact, the negative impact it has in our society, even to this day. So, first, let's explain quickly what the KKK is. So, the Ku Klux Klan is commonly shortened into the KKK, or the Klan. It's an American white supremacist terrorist aid group whose primary targets are African Americans, as well as Jews, immigrants, and even homosexuals. The Klan has existed in three distinct areas at different points in time during the history of the United States. Each has advocated extremist reactionary positions such as white nationalism, anti-immigration, and the KKK is mainly known for lynching African Americans, which is basically murdering for fun innocent African Americans, which is very disgusting. And there is even inside the movie there's a scene of lynching, basically. So this thing is really moving. This thing is really concerning, and it really opens the eyes of the audience to how terrible the KKK actions were during this time. And even to this day, obviously, there's still a couple KKK members, but like in the movie, Diaries made a very good job showing the audience how terrible the KKK's actions were, and by simply showing a scene of a lynching, which was really, really moving for everyone who watches the movie. The current manifestations of the KKK emerged after the 1950 in form of localized and isolated groups that uses the KKK name. They have focused on oppositions to the civil rights movement, often using violence and murder to suppress activists. It is classified as a hate group by the Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center. As of 2016, the Anti-Defamation League puts the total KKK membership nationwide at around 3,000, while the Southern Poverty Law Center puts it at around 6,000 members total, which is very concerning, to be honest. It might not seem like that much, but 6,000 members of the KKK is basically a potential of 6,000 potential mass murderer, or a potential of 6,000 murderers of like innocent African American, Jews, etc. for no reason. So it is actually pretty concerning, and it is actually a very big problem even to this day. So the fact that in our movie the director Diaries touches on this very important issue is very interesting, and she brings it up in such a manner that is very eye-opening to the audience. I personally didn't know it was that terrible back in the days during the 1950s. Like I knew there was a big problem, but I didn't know the action of the KKK were that disgusting. And for me to see this movie really opened my eyes. So yeah, hopefully you guys can watch it and have the same eye-opening that I had.
I'm going to make the conclusion of our presentation by telling you that in today's society there are still consequences of the racism in the south of the United States. But one man, Brian Stevenson, who is 61 now, took care of those men that were in prison for many years. And we have a movie that's telling us this story, who calls Just Mercy, who came out in theater in 2019, played by Michael B. Jordan. And Jamie Foxx too is in the movie. This is the story of Walter McMillan. Mr. McMillan, he was arrested because the new sheriff had to elucidate a murder that was made a few years ago on a white woman, and he knew the reputation of McMillan, who had the frequentation of a white woman, and one of his sons is married with a white woman too. So Mr. Stevenson saved him. He passed 30 years in prison because he was arrested, but 20 people knew that he was innocent. He was with them at that night, but he was arrested because of his reputation, and he passed all those 30 years without his family, fighting for his right, but he lost the hope of being free. But Stevenson came there and helped saving him from the penalty of death that was severing in the south of the United States. Since he founded Equal Justice Initiative, Mr. Stevenson helped to save over 125 men from this death penalty in the USA. That's all for us. Thank you for listening and taking the time of watching our representation. We hope you enjoyed, and we wish you a good day.